So the new Monster Hunter game, Monster Hunter World, is coming out in just under a week by the time this video will be done. And believe it or not, I am so fucking excited about it that I just had to put something out to cope with the fact that it's not here in my hands right now. When I ask my friends and Twitter followers if they're gonna be buying it, they always tell me almost word for word that they've tried one of the more recent games and it just didn't catch their attention. When I ask them if they played it with friends, they always say no. And that's when I'd spam them with long, drawn-out explanations as to why they need to give the game a chance. Basically, Monster Hunter controls like a third-person game. You've played a lot of those before. The idea is to accept a mission, go out in the wild, find the monster, and kill it as hard as you can. That's it. You might think to yourself, well, that sounds kind of boring, but you'd be insanely mistaken. It's one of the most thrilling experiences I've ever had. What you do is you kill a monster several times and rack up enough resources like bones, scales, teeth, and then you craft armor made out of that monster, and now when you fight it, you'll have extra resistance to certain elements as well as better defense. It's also really satisfying to hunt a monster while wearing its skin, just to add insult to injury. This is elevated by the fact that you can play with up to 3 friends who can use a variety of ranged and melee weapons to keep your strategies from getting stale. Instead of just hunting the same monster repeatedly by yourself, you can have your friends try to distract or paralyze it, and if nothing else, they make for a really good distraction while you charge up an attack. It's just way more fun getting rowdy with friends, and if I'm being honest, it's almost a waste to play the game solo considering how fun online play is.
He's paralyzed, get him.
Just keep smacking him.
Come here, bitch!
Come at me.
Get him, Chase. Kick his ass. I just read what Fry Guy typed. The trick is you gotta roll towards its balls. Funky smell, but it's safe.
The most likely explanation for Monster Hunter's relatively small following is that most gamers like the idea of slaying giant dragons as well as the tribal aesthetic the game has going for it, but in the past, hardware hasn't been terribly kind to the series. The original handful of games after the initial PS2 series premiere have been on the PlayStation Portable handheld. The main problem with the PSP was the single analog stick which let the player control the character, with the camera being controlled by the D-pad or shoulder button, which obviously clashes with the high-stakes, adrenaline-fueled nature of the gameplay that has you fighting insanely unforgiving bosses during the endgame G-rank hunts. There were talks about Capcom developing Monster Hunter for the PlayStation Vita, but when they saw that Nintendo was making all the money, they decided to bring the series to the Wii, Nintendo 3DS, and later the Wii U. The Wii version had you shelling out extra money for the Classic Controller Pro, which had 2 sticks and 4 shoulder buttons, which was a much needed improvement. But when the series went back to being portable on the Nintendo 3DS, the problem of playing with a single circle pad and using the shoulder button for aiming reared its ugly head. This was remedied with the invention of the clunky Circle Pad Pro, and later the extra analog nub in the new 3DS XL model added a more convenient means of control, but it was still a bit sensitive and difficult to fine-tune for a game that's all about positioning and reading monster moves before they one-shot you in the later battles. So it's safe to say that perfect controls have been an enormous hindrance for the series as a whole. Monster Hunter World changes that simply by giving you a normal fucking controller that lets you play the game like any other action game would, with 2 analog sticks and 4 shoulder buttons. And look, I know it seems like I'm beating a dead horse by explaining this so thoroughly, but it's honestly one of the more overlooked details regarding the game's failure to truly break into the mainstream. Back in the PSP days, it was a really niche thing, because if you were lucky enough to live locally to 3 other people who were introverted and hardcore enough to play a janky third-person action game with 1 control stick and lackluster hardware, then you could get the full experience of what made Monster Hunter so great. In reality, though, you were at the mercy of the game's lack of an online multiplayer mode, which often meant your only option was to play the game by yourself, stripping away the majority of the game's appeal. I mean, in that same breath, there's nothing inherently wrong with soloing Monster Hunter. I get the feeling that the majority of classic Monster Hunter fans had no other choice, and they still destroyed the game anyway with pure determination. But it's a relatively difficult and avant-garde genre to appeal to new people, so the series mostly spread through word of mouth after the series was released on the Wii, and there's been a growing popularity since then. So that leads us to the release of Monster Hunter World. I'm obviously not a psychic, but I honestly expect this game to be very profitable both in terms of performance but also growth. Based on the observable changes in the beta gameplay, I can predict that Monster Hunter World will be by far the most forgiving installment in the series, and based on little indicators like being able to have damage numbers pop up, having multiple camps at which you can swap weapon loadouts, a much more robust tutorial and practice system that really spells out the combat for new players, I can safely say that if you're new to the series and you've always been interested but didn't know where to start, now is your chance to experience the fun.
Oh my god!
Keep him distracted, I'm sharpening. Never mind, he's looking directly at me. Okay.
I really don't like how these other smaller creatures are being shitlords. Can you go away? I want to just poke this.
I love doing that. I love going down his spine with my weapon.
God, fucking hell, please don't.
Watch
Please,
this,
no.
watch this. Woo!
Oh god. Get him.
Hurt your feelings.
There's a reason this game is like $1 billion industry in Japan. There have never been any actually bad games in the series, and considering the 2004 released Monster Hunter MMO Frontier has been going strong and being given updates, is a testament to the quality assurance the team at Capcom is known for. I mean, I can't necessarily speak on all their other games, but in terms of Monster Hunter, it's always been a good time. It's safe to say that despite the new quality of life changes that will have all the elitist, diehard neckbeard veterans slamming on their keyboards at the speed of sound, I'm extremely excited for Monster Hunter World, with the controls looking more fluid and the gameplay being the most sophisticated it's ever been. The main downsides I can imagine are the low number of monsters which haven't been revealed yet. There may be only 25 or 30 compared to some of the other games featuring upwards of 50, but if the ending of the Elder Dragons trailer featuring Devil Joe is any indication, Capcom will be adding regular free DLC to keep longtime fans happy. And once it comes to PC, I'm looking forward to seeing how it runs. I've been a ridiculous Monster Hunter fan since I played it on the PSP back in the day, and I can't wait to introduce all of my friends to it and convince them to give it a try. So if you want to check it out, I'll be streaming it a bunch on Twitch with my friends and audience alike. And again, if you've been meaning to give the series a try, this looks like a great way for new players to get their foot in the door and see what all the fuss is about. I hope you guys end up trying it, and I'll be looking forward to all the multiplayer shenanigans my friends and I will have. And also, Capcom, please pay me money and send me the game early. I will literally suck your dick.